Hello, everyone, and welcome to BodyBags. I'll be your reviewer for today. I'm Lonnie from Tats. The movie that I wasn't really sure what I was going to do this week. I know we're just doing a random week, but it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do, and finally I came upon this one. This is a fun little ghost story from 1960. Uh, the story was created by the visual effects, and the movie was produced and directed by Bert Gordon. We are talking about Tormented. And this is actually a decent little flick. I mean, now I'm not gonna lie to you. The first time I saw this movie, I saw the Mystery Science Theater episode of it. But I do remember, even though the Mystery Science Theater episode is hilarious, and I do encourage you to see it, they get some really good jokes out of it. Actually, I remember, actually thinking the movie was actually pretty good. The story was a good one. It was a nice, contained, spooky ghost story, and I actually overall enjoyed it. So, sorry, that led me to seek out this Blu-ray from courtesy of good old Film Masters. And as a nice little bonus, the Mystery Science Theater episode is actually included on there as a bonus feature. But yeah, but actually, this movie is actually pretty fun to watch as is. Um, the story is centered around Tom Stewart, played by Richard Carlson here, who you might remember. Well, mostly you're going to remember him as the lead in the classic The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Tom is about ready to marry this girl, Meg. Meg is, the daughter of this, well-to-do family. They have money and they live a pretty nice, extravagant lifestyle. And so Tom is a jazz pianist, something that her father is not particularly fond of, but that's not really an integral part of the story. But, he and Meg have managed to fall in love and he wants to marry her and spend the rest of his life with her and basically pretty much be spoiled by her and her family's money. So things seem like they're on the up and up for good old Tom here. Only there's one little problem. See, it turns out that Tom has an ex girlfriend named Vi, who is the blonde girl here. And so, anyway, at the beginning of the movie, the two of them are standing on top of a light tower or a lighthouse, and they're standing by the railing. And so, Vi is telling Tom that basically she's obsessed with him and that she's not going to let him go. And I guess apparently while he was courting Meg, he was still contacting Vi and I guess sending her love letters or something like that. And she told him that she tells him, if you don't break off your engagement with Meg and be with me, I'm going to show her these letters and basically you know, your jazz career is going to be done, your marriage is going to be done. Basically, your goose is cooked. Well, a happy accident for Tom comes up because the railing, sorry, Vi is standing against the railing and the railing gives way and she's about to fall. And, she's reaching up and she's begging Tom to help her and not to let her fall. And Tom starts to go to help her, but then decides, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. And she, plummets to her death. So, now Tom is, he is guilt ridden. He doesn't want it to be like this. But at the same time, he's, just wanting to try to move on with his life. And so, he spends the following days, he's out, with binoculars, looking to see if her body turns up. And this one character that is, persistent, constantly, always around him is Meg's little sister, Sandy, who is actually played by Susan Gordon, who is Bert Gordon's daughter in real life. So she's kind of like, it turns out that Sandy is very much crushing on Tom and, just, like an innocent childhood crush. And, she thinks that, kind of a little bit, a little bit of jealousy and stuff. Um, she's kind of upset that Meg is going to get married to this, handsome man, this talented musician and all this other kind of stuff. And Sandy's a little bit jealous about the whole thing. But, like I said, it's just an innocent childhood thing. But So now, Tom thinks that he has gotten away with this whole thing, but all of a sudden, weird and spooky events start to happen. He starts noticing things are out of place. He's noticing, noises and he hears Vi's voice. And it turns out that, uh, what's the character's name? I'm sorry, I forget the character's name, but she's basically like, she's a landlord. She's a landlord of the beach house that Tom is staying in. And, she's blind. She goes around with a seeing eye dog. And, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the character's name. But anyway, so at one point he asks, does she believe in ghosts? And she says, like, no, I don't think so. But she's like, but now that I think about it, there's this, really good scene where she tells this kind of spooky ghost story where she talks about, there was this property that I rented to this family, and this family had a little boy, and the boy and the dog went out one day on the beach, and they never returned. Pretty much thinking that the little boy drowned, and you know she says that the family moved out, but she said every time she tried to rent the house, that anybody who tried to live in the house would not stay there more than a few days, and said that I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm so sorry about that, but she says that anybody who stayed in the house, they said that one problem that they kept hearing an unseen dog like scratching and barking at the back door, and there was like a cold in the bedroom where the boy stayed, and the walls were like damp with seawater, and there was seaweed and stuff. It's actually a pretty spooky scene the way it's done. Now, I mean, of course, you watch the Mystery Science Theater version of it. They make some jokes about it and stuff like that, but it's still that I think that's one of the reasons why I picked this movie too. Is like even with the jokes and everything, while the jokes were funny, it still is a pretty effective scene. It still is a creepy scene, and listening to it, it does sound like you're almost listening to a really good kind of sitting around the campfire story. So Tom does realize that he goes to the lighthouse, and in the meantime, he's like still trying to, keep everything together, and he wants to be with Meg, and they're kind of arguing a little bit, but they still want to be together, and of course, Sandy is just constantly always hanging around Tom, and he's like always trying to kind of get away from her and stuff. And he's going to the lighthouse and telling Vi to, he's like, Vi, if your spirit's here, I want you to leave me alone. But you keep hearing voices, her voice is like, no one, her saying like, no one will ever have you but me, you know. And so you know, they're trying to maintain their relationship and all this stuff, but things are just getting creepier and getting weirder and all this stuff. And then we get a boat kind of ferryman played by Joe Turkel, who you'll remember as Lloyd the bartender in The Shining. Well, he comes to the island and he's like, yeah, this girl Vi, she rode on my boat, and we made a deal. So, so we made a deal. I drive her over. She give me $5 over. She'll give me $5 back. And at first, it's like all I want is just the $5 she owes me. So Tom gives her the money, but Turkel's character overhears, overhears at the hamburger stand where Sandy and the housekeeper, they're having lunch and stuff, and they're talking about Tom is getting ready to marry Meg, and so Joe Turkel's character decides the best thing to do would be to blackmail Tom. And so he goes and tells him, like, I want $5,000 or I spilled the beans and stuff. And so now Tom is, it's that kind of story where, like, the whole thing is like escalating. It's just getting worse and getting worse. And he has to keep telling more lies. And eventually, Tom actually has to start committing more murders to cover up this whole thing. And the whole thing is just building and building and building until the whole thing just explodes and comes to a pretty shocking ending, and I think I'll leave it at that. But it's definitely it's definitely a good tale of ghostly revenge from beyond the grave, and it actually is a fun little movie. I actually recommend it. It's like I said, despite the fact that it's been on Mystery Science Theater. Now I've reviewed a couple of movies that have been on Mystery Science Theater before. Um, not every movie they did was a terrible movie. They've actually done some movies that, even though they're not going to be Academy Award winners, they actually have, they actually have done some movies that turned out actually had some decent storylines and decent plots and things like that to them. One thing I was really happy about being a fan of Mystery Science Theater, it got me the opportunity to watch way more Roger Corman films than I probably would have been able to find on my own. And that was one of the things, that made me appreciate. I mean, it's like, yeah, the jokes are funny, but at the same time, like I said, it was able to get me to watch movies I would have had trouble trying to find on my own. A couple of Ed Wood's movies, like The Sinister Urge and Bride of the Monster. Like I said, a number of Roger Corman films. And some of Bert I. Gordon's films and stuff like that. So I really am grateful to Mystery Science Theater that it gave me the chance to see movies like this. And another movie that even though the jokes were funny and stuff, it actually wasn't a bad movie. Was the movie Bloodlust. And that movie had Robert Reed, the dad from the Brady Bunch, and that movie was just kind of a different take on. It's actually a very grisly movie, but the movie is actually just kind of a different take on the short story, The Most Dangerous Game, which actually, if you can find the movie, I say check it out. It's not bad, and of course, check out the Mystery Science Theater version because it's pretty funny. But overall. If you're in the mood for like a good ghost story, kind of an old, an oldie but a goodie, an old black and white movie. Of course, like some of the visual effects, even though Burt I. Gordon did a lot of visual effects for his movies and stuff like that, and in some instances, some of his films, the special effects didn't really hold up. But I mean, still, this is actually a decent made little flick, and and this movie does go into some dark places. And, there are a couple of moments where this movie does, even for a movie that came out in 1960, this movie does feel like it's pretty dark and it's pushing some boundaries and stuff and going into some really dark places. And there's, a genuine air of suspense to the story. So I think, I would definitely say check it out. So this is a fun little flick. So I think that's about all I have to say about it. Tormented, I would say give it a shot. Definitely, even if you're not the world's biggest Burt I. Gordon fan, I would say, this one actually is worth checking out. It's got a good story and everything else. So, and hell, if anything, it's just fun to watch Joe Turkel play, this kind of beatnik character, like, hey, daddy-o, I just want the bread, man, that kind of thing. So there's that. But yeah, so that's it. So if anybody took the time to watch all this, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I also hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, would you please leave it a like? If you haven't already, please go and subscribe to the BodyBags channel. And today is Friday the 13th, so be careful, avoid pretty much just about anybody wearing a hockey mask. So that's it. So, and somebody with like a bag over their head has got like the one eye, avoid them too. So anyway, that's it. Everybody take care. Have a good night. See you all later.